Good day, everybody. It's Andrew here. Welcome back to my channel. So, are we getting Kirsten Cinema on board for the stimulus package and on board for stimulus checks for seniors? Let's discuss the details, but before we jump into it, do me a quick favor, hit like, hit subscribe, and share this channel with anyone who you think might find this helpful. This is a community for seniors, and my job here is to be a voice for you and be a voice for seniors to make sure President Biden keeps his promises to increase Social Security, increase SSI and SSDI, and even approve a stimulus check for seniors in this next stimulus package. So on this channel, we continue to fight for seniors every single day, and all I ask is you support our community by watching our videos, and if you really want to support our work, consider becoming a channel member. Quick shout out to our most recent members, Thomas Tynan and Daryl Anderson. They allow me to do this full time by giving a monthly donation, and that allows me to do research and bring you guys the news that affects seniors the most. So if you'd like to become a channel member, just go to my YouTube channel page or click on the link that's in the comments of this video. And on my page, there's going to be a join button right here in the middle. Click join and it's going to walk you through that process. And again, if you can't afford to do so, I completely understand, but this is just for those who can afford it, and I really appreciate your support. Well, folks, obviously Bernie has been trying to get this $1,000 stimulus check for seniors. Of course, we're pushing for $2,000, and things have been kind of slowing down. We know Chuck Schumer has been saying that he's going to try and change the filibuster rules, right? So if he changes the filibuster rules, it's going to make it easier for Democrats to do multiple smaller packages throughout the year instead of having to do just one giant package through budget reconciliation, which is what they've previously been using for the stimulus packages. Now, Chuck Schumer has said on Monday, January 17th, or by Monday, January 17th, which is just a few days away, they're going to try and bring this to a vote to change the filibuster rules. But of course, to do this, they would have to get both Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin on board. So basically the question we've been asking ourselves for the last 6 to 9 months, are we going to get Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema on board? Well, in a rare sighting, Kirsten Sinema took the Senate floor and gave a speech just last night talking about the filibuster and talking about whether or not she's going to get on board and what's going to happen next, really. So this whole filibuster conversation is currently centering around voting rights. Now, Kirsten Sinema supports Democrats' efforts to reform voting rights, and this could potentially be an olive branch to changing the filibuster, which would then make it easier, paving the way to get more stimulus done. So to recap, Kirsten Sinema doesn't really want to do a ton of stimulus, and she doesn't really want to change the filibuster, but she does want to change the voting laws. So, in order for Democrats to change voting laws, they're probably going to have to change the filibuster. So now we're in a situation where we're asking, well, even though she doesn't really want to change the filibuster, can voting rights be big enough of an issue for her to get her on board to change the filibuster? So if that happens, we could get a change in the filibuster rule, which would then pave the way to allow us to do multiple smaller packages in general, whether it's voting rights, immigration reform, and more stimulus packages, and even changing Social Security benefits to increase benefits. So, to be quite honest with you here, folks, it wasn't really a positive speech. She kind of doubled down on the fact that she doesn't want to change the filibuster, but again, this could potentially be an olive branch. If she really wants to change voting reform laws, she's going to have to get on board with changing the filibuster. So if we can get her on board with that, then we're going to be in a situation where we can get more stimulus done. Now, to be honest with you, the way things stand today, it's still going to be an uphill battle. It's not like she came out and said, all right, we're changing the filibuster, but this is potentially a path forward. So in this speech, she talks about the fact that she does want to change voting laws, but she still is hesitant to really change the filibuster rules. But the conversation now is heading in the direction of, hey, if we're going to get these voting laws changed, we're going to have to do something to the filibuster. Now, in this clip, she says she doesn't want to get rid of the filibuster, but that doesn't mean that we can't change it in a certain way that still leaves it in place, but allows more legislation to come to fruition. Like, for instance, there are a couple ideas, like actually making it old school how it used to be, where you actually had to do a talking filibuster, meaning that if you wanted to block legislation, you physically had to stand up there and talk for hours or even days to block the legislation. You couldn't just passively block it. Right nowadays, the senators don't even have to go to the Senate to use the filibuster, right? So it's completely passive. So there are things like that that she's open to. So it's really important that we take a look in this rare sighting. She almost never takes the Senate floor. She never gives interviews. So it's really important that we take a look, see what Kirsten Sinema had to say. That way we can use this information to kind of see, okay, what can we expect to happen next? Is she open at all? Is there even like a 1 or 5% chance that she would be willing to change the filibuster rules? So, folks, stick around for this clip. It's going to be a really important clip. We're going to see what Kirsten Sinema has to say regarding voting laws, changing the filibuster, and then, of course, like I said, that's going to have massive implications when it comes to getting more stimulus done. So with that said, folks, don't forget to subscribe. I will keep you posted as things develop. Chuck Schumer has said he plans to try and change the filibuster as soon as January 17th, so I will keep you posted as things develop. So I hope you're all having a great day. Let's take a look, see what Kirsten Sinema had to say. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you on the next video.
For years, America's politics have spiraled steadily downward into increasingly bitter tribal partisanship, and our democracy has been strained. While that may sound abstract, it is a problem that hurts Americans in real, tangible ways. These deepening divisions hurt our ability to work together to create new job opportunities, protect the health and safety of our communities and country, and to ensure everyday families get ahead. Americans across the country know this. They see it every day, not only on social media and cable news, but at their jobs and around their dinner tables. We are divided. It is more likely today that we look at other Americans who have different views and see the other, or even see them as enemies, instead of as fellow countrymen and women who share our core values. It's more common today to demonize someone who thinks differently than us, rather than to seek to understand their views. Our politics reflect and exacerbate these divisions, making it more and more difficult to find lasting, broadly supported solutions to safeguard our freedoms, keep our country safe, and expand opportunity for all our citizens. So 2 questions face us as a nation. Where does this descending spiral of division lead? And how can we stop it? Our country's divisions have now fueled efforts in several states that will make it more difficult for Americans to vote and undermine faith that all Americans should have in our elections and our democracy. These state laws have no place in a nation whose government is formed by free, fair, and open elections. We must also acknowledge a painful fact. The state laws we seek to address are symptoms of a larger, more deeply rooted problem facing our democracy. The divisions themselves, which have hardened in recent years and have combined with rampant disinformation to push too many Americans away from our basic constitutional values. In the spring of 2017, after Trump took office, I wrote an opinion piece in the Arizona Republic highlighting my concerns about the strains on our constitutional boundaries and the shrinking respect for our founding constitutional principles. In the years that followed, my colleagues and I in this body were called upon to participate in 2 separate impeachment trials for crimes against our Constitution. And on January 6th last year, I was standing in this very spot, speaking in this very chamber, defending Arizona's fair and valid election against disinformation when violent insurrectionists halted the presidential certification. Threats to American democracy are real. I share the concerns of civil rights advocates and others I've heard from in recent months about these state laws. I strongly support those efforts to contest these laws in court and to invest significant resources into these states to better organize and stop efforts to restrict access at the ballot box. And I strongly support and will continue to vote for legislative responses to address these state laws, including the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act that the Senate is currently considering. I support these bills because they strengthen Americans' access to the ballot box, and they better ensure that Americans' votes are counted fairly. It is through elections that Americans make their voices heard, select their representatives, and guide the future of our countries and our community. These bills help treat the symptoms of the disease, but they do not fully address the disease itself. And while I continue to support these bills, I will not support separate actions that worsen the underlying disease of division infecting our country. The debate over the Senate's 60-vote threshold shines a light on our broader challenges. There's no need for me to restate my long-standing support for the 60-vote threshold to pass legislation. There's no need for me to restate its role protecting our country from wild reversals in federal policy. It is a view I've held during my years serving in both the U.S. House and the Senate, and it is the view I continue to hold. It is the belief that I have shared many times in public settings and in private settings. Senators of both parties have offered ideas, including some that would earn my support, to make this body more productive, more deliberative, more responsive to Americans' needs, and a place of genuine debate about our country's pressing issues. And while this week's harried discussions about Senate rules are but a poor substitute for what I believe could have and should have been a thoughtful public debate at any time over the past year, such a discussion is still a worthy goal. But a discussion of rules falls short of what is required. American politics are cyclical, and the granting of power in Washington, D.C. is exchanged regularly by the voters from one party to another. This shift of power back and forth means the Senate 60 vote threshold has proved maddening to members of both political parties in recent years, viewed either as a weapon of obstruction or a safety net to save the country from radical policies, depending on whether you serve in the majority or the minority. But what is the legislative filibuster other than a tool that requires new federal policy to be broadly supported by senators representing a broader cross-section of Americans, a guardrail, inevitably viewed as an obstacle by whoever holds the Senate majority, but which in reality ensures that millions of Americans represented by the minority party have a voice in the process. Demands to eliminate this threshold from whichever party holds the fleeting majority amount to a group of people separated on two sides of a canyon, shouting that solution to their colleagues, and that makes the rift both wider and deeper. Consider this. In recent years, nearly every party line response to the problems we face in this body, every partisan action taken to protect a cherished value, has led us to more division, not less. The impact is clear for all to see. The steady escalation of tit for tat, in which each new majority weakens the guardrails of the Senate and excludes input from the other party, furthering resentment and anger amongst this body and our constituents at home. Democrats' increased use of requiring cloture for judicial nominees under President George W. Bush led to similar tactics by Republicans under President Barack Obama. The 2013 decision by Senate Democrats to eliminate the 60-vote threshold for most judicial and presidential nominations led directly to a response in 2017 by Senate Republicans, who eliminated the threshold for Supreme Court nominees. These short-sighted actions by both parties have led to our current American judiciary and Supreme Court, which, as I stand here today, is considering questions regarding fundamental rights Americans have enjoyed for decades. Eliminating the 60-vote threshold on a party line with the thinnest of possible majorities to pass these bills that I support will not guarantee that we prevent demagogues from winning office. Indeed, some who undermine the principles of democracy have already been elected. Rather, eliminating the 60-vote threshold will simply guarantee that we lose a critical tool that we need to safeguard our democracy from threats in the years to come. It is clear that the two-party strategies are not working, not for either side, and especially not for the country. Now, it's comfortable for members of each party, particularly those who spent their career in party politics, to think that their respective party alone can move the country forward. Party control becomes a goal in and of itself, instead of prioritizing a healthy, appropriate balance in which Americans' diverse views and shared values are represented. But when one party need only negotiate with itself, policy will inextricably be pushed from the middle towards the extremes. And I understand there are some on both sides of the aisle that prefer that outcome, but I do not. And I know that Arizonans do not either. Our country's first president, George Washington, a leader whose wisdom I borrowed at the conclusion of the 2020 impeachment trial, he warned against political factions more than 200 years ago, saying that extreme partisanship could lead to the ruins of public liberty. I was no party man myself, Washington wrote, and the first wish of my heart was, if parties did exist, to reconcile them. Today, we serve in an equally divided Senate, and today marks the longest time in history that the Senate has been equally divided. The House of Representatives is nearly equally divided as well. Our mandate? It seems evident to me. Work together and get stuff done for America. And the past years have shown when a party in control pushes party line changes exceeding their electoral mandate, the bitterness within our politics is exacerbated. Tensions are raised within the country, and traditionally, nonpartisan issues are transformed into partisan wedges. We must address the disease itself, the disease of division, to protect our democracy. And it cannot be achieved by one party alone. It cannot be achieved solely by the federal government. The response requires something greater and, yes, more difficult than what the Senate is discussing today. We need robust, sustained strategies that put aside party labels and focus on our democracy, because these challenges are bigger than party affiliation. We must commit to a long-term approach as serious as the problems we seek to solve, one that prioritizes listening and understanding, one that embraces making progress on shared priorities and finding common ground on issues where we hold differing and diverse views. This work requires all Americans everywhere. Efforts to fix these problems on a bare majority party line will only succeed in exacerbating the root causes that gave way to these state laws in the first place, extending our descent into a more fragmented America. This work is our shared responsibility as Americans. I share the disappointment of many that we've not found more support on the other side of the aisle for legislative responses to state-level voting restrictions. I wish that were not the case. Just as I wish there had been a more serious effort on the part of Democratic Party leaders to sit down with the other party and genuinely discuss how to reforge common ground on these issues.